Hamish, thank you so much for joining me. Now, Hamish, talk to me about this particular process that the police went through to find this body. We don't know whether it's Nicola Bulley, but did they do everything in the sort of right process and order? Because I know you're an expert in that sort of thing. So would you say the procedures they followed and the way they executed them were the way that you would have gone about it?
Well, firstly, good afternoon to you, Nana, and I agree with the Home Secretary. This is just the news the relatives didn't want to hear, but perhaps privately they were thinking that was going to happen as time went on. So there are a couple of aspects here. Clearly, the river has been searched again. The police have kept going, and good for them. I know comments been made about the investigation. I don't subscribe to the adverse side at all. They put a lot of work into this, and they've gone over and re-gone over searches they've done. And sadly, this person's been found. And the next thing to do is identify the deceased. Now, I'm going to just be very careful with my language here, not to upset anyone. But the deceased will have to be identified. Now, very often that's visually. Now, it depends I suppose, the condition of the body, whether that's feasible or indeed a good idea. So they're going to look for other things like clothing, personal belongings, jewellery, that sort of thing, which perhaps the family can help with. It's going to be a difficult process for them. Outside that, there's going to be DNA, perhaps, and I don't know, when the police went to a house, as a precaution, they might have taken hairbrushes, combs, toothbrush, and that can identify DNA evidence. Ultimately, it would be a matter of doing some analysis and taking comparisons with blood family relatives, and they can go from there. So that's the first thing they've got to do. Secondly, there will be an examination of this person. And again, I'll choose my words carefully, but I'm sure it'll be no surprise to everyone. There will be what's known as a post-mortem examination. And given the circumstances, the coroner may well elect that it should be done by a Home Office pathologist. But in any event, it will take place. And hopefully there will be a cause of death. If it is Nicola, she would have been in the water for 3 weeks. And that can destroy certain things, but it will give the police a good idea of what this person died from, and it is from there they'll have to look at overall their investigation and how this fits in, what they have. Maybe it supports it, maybe it doesn't, and I hope they'll keep an open mind where they go from here. But the identification process, and I've done this both inside and outside the police with agency work, working within the criminal justice system, it isn't pleasant for anyone. And I'm afraid it's just another line of unpleasant torture for the family, but something nevertheless that must be done.
And how long does it usually take them for the police to release this kind of information?
Well, the police will be more than aware that the media are on their back, and they would have set up a team, I'm sure, to put this out. And given recent events, I'm sure they'll be very careful how this is worded. But first of all, they must tell the family in the first instance, so the family know what's going on and nothing is a surprise in the newspapers. And once again, I've got to say, and covered this quite a lot in the last few weeks in the media, the people with these wild ideas just keep away. And that includes retired police officers, by the way. I try to keep a very neutral view on this and let the police just get on with it. It doesn't help anyone, and it just feeds speculation, and it adds to the distress of the family. So there will be a period of time. It could be done pretty quickly. Maybe there's something significant with the deceased easily identifies them. Perhaps it isn't, but when the body is sent to the hospital, to the mortuary, it may well be put, and the coroner will be informed, believed to be. So they have a name and they'll work from there. So we'll have to see what happens from there. And indeed, of course, it follows the police investigation, their painstaking work they've done up to now. And hopefully they can draw a line on this pretty quickly. But we'll have to see what is what. And my heart, I know everyone else's heart and prayers go out to the family. And it's very difficult to know what to say. But at least she has been... someone has been found, which might be identified as Nicola.
Mm. And obviously the hope for the family, and, you know, if it is Nicola, we don't want it to be Nicola. We'd rather that it was nobody and this hadn't happened at all. But if it is, there will be a level of closure. But it is heartbreaking that this has happened and this incident is there. Is there anything, because you talked about the people doing sleuths going in there and pretending to be detectives and stuff, is there anything that the police could have done to kind of prevent or protect the scene better? I know it was a wide space, but in your experience, is there anything they could have done?
Well, they had to make these decisions pretty quickly, and it is conceivable they could have... I suppose, roped off the area, you know, put pass tapes up and that sort of thing. I'm not sure how far that would have taken that as a public bench in a park or by a river. I think they will look at, in hindsight, on their media strategy and how certain information was released. I think there's no need to go over it because you know what I'm talking about. There's certain issues which has caused something of a storm in the media with the public, and people have voiced some concern. But the situation is they were in a very difficult position how to take this forward, with the possibility that what they knew of Nicola's background was going to make perhaps the tabloids, been sold to tabloids, and it would not have been presented perhaps in a very sympathetic way. So the hand was a little bit forced. But what they might look at is how this came about in the first place, and could there have been a strategy to, I don't know, give some information or hold things back. And they were between a rock and a hard place eventually, and they might feel they were in a no-win situation. But they may well look back at the media strategy. But I am quite convinced, excuse me, from what I've heard, what I've seen, and that excellent police conference on Wednesday this week, the police have put their heart and soul and effort into this very unpleasant investigation.